In a world teeming with conquerors and tyrants, one man stands apart, embracing a path of transformation that forever alters the course of an empire. Welcome to the riveting saga of Ashoka, a king who starts his journey as a ruthless leader, only to end up as one of the most enlightened rulers in history, from intense battles to shadowy conspiracies, from his own inner turmoil to the very destiny of the Maurya Empire. This story unveils the life of a man who becomes more than just a king. He becomes a legend. So, are you ready to unravel the extraordinary tale of Ashoka the Great? Before we start, I want to thank you for your support. You who like the videos and comments are the ones who help the channel to grow and continue to provide you with exciting stories about the greatest rulers. Thank you for being with us. Let's begin. The year is 304 BCE, and the day is clear. The atmosphere in the Maurya Empire is tense. The sun unequivocally shines over the palace, signaling something grand is about to happen. Today, in a room infused with the aroma of figs and cinnamon, the future king, Ashoka, is born. Ashoka is the grandson of Chandragupta Maurya, the founder of the dynasty born in 340 BCE, and the son of King Bindusara, who ascended the throne in 298 BCE. From the moment of his birth, the shadow of his great-grandfather Chandragupta looms over him like an inescapable destiny. He grows up in the shadow of his elder brother Sushim, who has been groomed for the throne since childhood. Ashoka is enamored with learning and philosophy, heavily influenced by the teachings of Buddhist monks who frequently visit the palace. Years pass, and it's 272 BCE when his father, Bindusara, dies. Although not the first choice for an heir, Ashoka's intelligent and decisive nature captures the attention of his father until his last breath. After successfully managing various administrative and military tasks in the provinces, Ashoka gains his father's trust. However, this is not enough to overcome the prejudices and conspiracies at the court. It's evident that the throne will not be won easily. Sushim, the elder brother, arrives with an army to claim the throne after their father's demise. Passions run high in the palace, and political games reach their apex. Then comes the critical moment, the battle for the throne in 268 BCE. Sushim's army is certainly larger and better trained, but Ashoka has something his brother lacks: vision. A vision that turns his ordinary soldiers into unshakable warriors, willing to follow him to the ends of the earth. Ashoka doesn't just employ one or two strategic tricks. He routes his brother through a series of masterfully executed tactics. His brilliant strategy, coupled with his passion for uniting the nation, leads him to an unparalleled victory. With that moment, Ashoka not only rises as the victor in battle, but also as the new king of the Maurya Empire. In 268 BCE he is crowned and ceremoniously ascends the throne. Here begins the true story of Ashoka, the man who, from a cruel and ambitious youth, will transform into one of the greatest kings in the history of India. His victory is sweet, but little does he realize this is just the beginning of a much larger, more challenging path. The empire is torn by internal and external conflicts, and only a strong leader can unify it and make it great. At the moment of his coronation, Ashoka is excited but determined. He places the crown on his head with the awareness that he must be not just a ruler but a great ruler, and that is only possible if he can overcome the upcoming challenges that history has in store for him, because Ashoka has not only to rule but also to change, and this change will start from within him. The year is 268 BCE, and Ashoka is in power. Carrying forth his father's legacy, wars and conquests are in full swing. War is a relentless engine of the empire, and Ashoka is no different. Battle-hardened, Ashoka decides to turn his gaze south. And here we find one of the most famous battles in the Maurya dynasty's history, the Battle of Kalinga in 261 BCE. Ashoka faces off against the independent state of Kalinga, modern-day Odisha, unwilling to submit to Mauryan rule. The tactics Ashoka employs are shrewd and varied. From mass artillery barrages to specialized units, he leaves nothing to chance. After long and exhausting battles, Kalinga is finally defeated, but at a terrible cost. The aftermath is horrifying. The war claims the lives of about 100,000 soldiers and leaves even more wounded and dead among the civilian population. As he steps onto the devastated land and sees the consequences of his actions, Ashoka is shocked. This moment is transformative for him. Suddenly, the cost of power and empire becomes brutally apparent. A new aspiration is born in Ashoka's heart, an aspiration for peace and constructive rule. He turns his attention to Buddhism and starts implementing social and cultural reforms. The era of Dharma, or righteous governance, begins. Hospitals, roads, and shrines begin to be built throughout the empire. More than a military leader, he becomes a spiritual guide, even sending out missions to propagate Buddhist teachings in other parts of the world. Despite the skepticism of many of his contemporaries, Ashoka's methods begin to show results. This transformed and now flourishing empire witnesses a new era of peace and coexistence, but while he continues with internal reforms, external threats do not cease. Ashoka is at a crossroads. The next chapter in his life will be decisive. Will he continue down the path of peace, or will he be forced to revert to his old ways? After the Battle of Kalinga, Ashoka's commitment to the principles of Dharma is unyielding. The empire, spanning the Indian subcontinent, is at its zenith. The calendar reads 260 BCE, and there's a sense of optimism in the air. Ashoka becomes more than a king. He becomes an ideal, a moral figure who promotes welfare, equality, and justice. His inscriptions on pillars and rocks, known as the Edicts of Ashoka, spread his messages on governance and morality. These are not just letters etched on stone. They are the very blueprint of his transformed empire. Ashoka's edicts are fascinating historical documents that give us an insight into the mind and administration of this transformative ruler. Here are three of the most interesting. Edict 1. Prohibition of animal sacrifice and slaughter. This edict reflects Ashoka's shift towards compassion and ethical governance. He condemns the killing of animals for sacrifices, and even goes as far as restricting the slaughter of specific species for food. This was a radical move in an era where animal sacrifices were common in religious practices. The edict signifies his commitment to ahimsa, or non-violence, a cornerstone of Buddhist philosophy. Edict 5. Appointment of Dhamma Mahamattas. In this edict, Ashoka discusses the appointment of special officers known as Dhamma Mahamattas. These officers were responsible for the administration of justice and welfare in the empire. They looked after the welfare of all religious sects, promoting tolerance and harmony. It was their duty to ensure the ethical and moral upliftment of the people, thereby establishing the rule of Dharma. Edict 13. The Kalinga Edict. Perhaps the most revealing of all, this edict comes after Ashoka's devastating war with Kalinga. It serves as a public confession and a commitment to peace. Ashoka openly discusses the misery and death caused by the war and announces his resolve to follow the path of Dharma henceforth. He pledges to replace conquest by the sword with conquest by morality and virtue. Each of these edicts shows a different facet of Ashoka's rule, reflecting his journey from a war-hungry conqueror to a peaceful and enlightened ruler. These edicts are not just historical artifacts, but messages that transcended time, underscoring his legacy. Embracing the philosophy of Dharma doesn't render Ashoka's empire immune to external threats or internal dissension. In fact, his pacifist approach appears as a perceived weakness to neighboring kings and would-be rebels. They imagine that Ashoka's newfound dedication to non-violence and compassion could be an exploitable flaw, a chink in his otherwise impenetrable armor. But Ashoka is not naive. His commitment to peace is not a renunciation of responsibility to protect his realm. When faced with uprisings or external invasions, the emperor responds decisively, wielding the sword as deftly as he propagates the scroll of Dharma. His army, though not deployed for imperial conquest anymore, remains formidable. Ashoka understands that the ideals of Dharma can only thrive in a stable, secure environment. To that end, he meets each act of aggression with equal force, shattering any illusions that his empire is a soft target. His actions send a clear message. While the Mauryan Empire is a sanctuary for peace and moral integrity, it is no sanctuary for those who mistake kindness for weakness. Ashoka demonstrates that a ruler can be both compassionate and fierce, embodying different facets of Dharma in his multifaceted role as a leader. Ashoka's personal life, too, is woven with threads of intrigue and purpose. He marries multiple times, but it's his queen, Devi, who shares his Buddhist beliefs, who leaves a lasting impression. Their union isn't just a marriage. It's a spiritual partnership that aids Ashoka's transformation. Yet not all members of Ashoka's family share his fervour for Buddhism. His eldest son Mahendra does, and Ashoka sees an opportunity for both familial and spiritual legacy. In a calculated yet heartfelt move, he sends Mahendra to Sri Lanka with a mission to spread the teachings of the Buddha. Mahendra's journey is not just an extension of Ashoka's empire, but also his ideology. He successfully converts the Sri Lankan king to Buddhism, and in doing so, ensures that the wheels of Dharma, set in motion by his father, spin far beyond the borders of their homeland. Through his wives and his son, Ashoka finds not only emotional and familial bonds, but also avenues through which he can further the Buddhist ideals he so deeply cherishes. Over the years, Ashoka pours funds and efforts into education, public welfare, and infrastructure. He introduces an array of social reforms, aiming to create a cohesive and harmonious society. He even establishes diplomatic relations with foreign states like Syria, Egypt, and Macedonia, spreading the message of Buddhism as far as the Mediterranean. But as he ages, challenges mount. Around 238 BCE, the last years of his reign approach, and the strength of the Mauryan Empire starts to wane. Territories on the fringes begin to break away, and dissent starts fermenting within the palace walls. Yet, in the face of decline, Ashoka's belief in Dharma never wavers. He continues to focus on spiritual development and ethical governance until the very end. Those around him may question the feasibility of his lofty ideals in the face of a crumbling empire, but Ashoka remains steadfast. Ashoka dies in 232 BCE, and with him dies an era. His death marks not only the end of his reign, but also the beginning of the disintegration of the Mauryan Empire. His descendants will not be able to uphold the grand vision he had for his domain. Ashoka's legacy is a complex one, marked by bloodshed, transformation, and an unquenchable thirst for a more just world. The wheels of his chariot may have stopped, but the wheels of Dharma he set into motion continue to spin, even beyond the Indian subcontinent. For centuries to come, he will be remembered not for the battles he won, but for the peace he sought. His life serves as a poignant reminder that even in the quest for empire and power, there exists the potential for compassion and change. And so, the story of Ashoka, one of history's most intriguing and transformative figures, comes to an end. From a ruthless conqueror to a benevolent ruler, his journey reflects the indomitable human spirit's capacity for change. Thank you for watching until the end. Don't forget to subscribe to ensure you have access to the upcoming Great Rulers videos.